Tim, thanks very much, and very much enjoyed Sam's presentation on the overview of the market. I saw lots of familiar names, and the great thing about Australia is you guys understand the mining industry well. So a lot of what I've been talking about, you'll be very familiar with. So maybe we can move to the first slide, which is a summary slide. So when we talk about Trilogy Metals, what we're talking about is a 50% interest in the Ambler mining district. And the metals that we're looking at are copper, zinc, cobalt, or gold and silver. There's also a cobalt resource that I'll talk about. It's high-grade copper. We've got two projects, one called Arctic, which is an advanced development asset, and another one called Bornite, which is an advanced exploration project. Arctic, we have economics on. We have a feasibility study that was done last year, and on a 100% basis, it's a $1.1 billion NPV with very reasonable base case prices. Our project or our district is in partnership with South 32. South 32 contributed $145 million to become a 50% JV partner in the district. So I'll talk a little bit about that. We're located in Alaska. There is a lot of Australian investment coming into Alaska, obviously with the Pogo gold mine, but also in the northern part of BC, we're starting to see Newcrest come in and other Australian companies looking in the district. And South 32, in addition to investment in Trilogy, also has other exploration investments in the state of Alaska. And we have significant exploration upside, which I'll speak to as well. So next slide, please. In terms of just the share capitalization, Tim gave an overview of a market cap in Australian dollar terms. In the US dollar basis, we're $340 million. We're listed on the Toronto and New York Stock Exchange. We have about cash of $10 million at the corporate level, no debt. So the JV cash that we have of $140 million is sufficient to run our exploration development program for the next 4 years. We have meaningful, significant shareholders, Electrum, Paulson, and Baupost, all out of New York or Boston, own 37% of the stock, and then Bernard Seltz, also out of New York, another 8%. So 45% sits within a small group of shareholders, management, and former management control about 5% of the stock. South 32, in addition to owning 50% of the JV, owns 11% of the stock. So we're well capitalized, very supportive shareholder base. Next slide, please. I'm going to just talk briefly about some of the partnerships, which I think hits on a lot of the key terms that Sam was highlighting earlier. So I mentioned our joint venture partnership with South 32. So South 32 in total has invested about $200 million in the Ambler mining district or in Trilogy directly, $145 million to form a JV, $30 million in exploration expenditure that occurred from 2017 to 2019, and then they purchased the 11.4% stake in the market. And having South 32 as a partnership, I think in many ways validates what we have in the Ambler mining district. We also have a native partner, and this speaks to some of the ESG comments that Sam made. Having NANA as a native partner is very important. NANA has a rich mining history. They're involved with the Red Dog mine, which is the largest zinc mine in the world. And they have the ability to participate in the development of any mines in the Ambler mining district. And I'm happy to give you a bit more overview as we go through the presentation. And then lastly, on the infrastructure side, we're involved with the state of Alaska. And when I talk about Arctic and Bornite, the only reason these mines are not in production is one missing link of infrastructure, which is a road that we'll talk to next. Next slide, please. This is the district in the state of Alaska, and you can see the Northwest Arctic Borough, which is a shaded area, top left. Red Dog mine is there, and as I said, when I speak to investors here in North America, I like to point out that we're modeling ourselves very much on the development of a Red Dog, in that we have NANA as a partner in the district, and we also are working with ADA to help build the last piece of missing infrastructure. So the proposed Ambler access road is 211 miles. It would connect to existing highway, which is a Dalton Highway, which is the background photo that I'm using for this presentation. And then there's a rail link in Fairbanks, which already exists, that takes you all the way to Anchorage, where there's a deep sea port, which ships 365 days a year. So the road is fully permitted. It was permitted last year. We've just arrived at an agreement with ADA to fund the detailed engineering, which is going to be approximately up to $70 million, the US dollars, over the next 4 years. So we expect to spend about $15 million this year in terms of advancing the road. And what would happen in terms of road construction, it would begin when we make the investment decision to move a project forward. Next slide, please. In terms of the district, this is where the road is expected to run. All of those dots, squares, stars in red are targets or potential targets within the district. The Ambler mining district is approximately 172,000 hectares. So it's a very large district. The actual mineralization runs for about 100 kilometers. There's two deposits noted in there, Sun and Smucker, which are not part of the JV. Sun is privately owned, Smucker is owned by Teck. Next slide, please. In terms of economics, these were the economics that were put out as part of our feasibility study that we released last year. This is on the Arctic project only. We used the base case prices that we had used under our PFS, and it indicates an NPV of $1.1 billion on a 100% basis for the project as a whole. You can see that the cash cost net of byproduct credits are very low, 32 cents. The other number that I like to look at here is the capital intensity. It's about $7,400 a ton, which is low. We have an IRR of 27%. Sam was talking about, how the market has changed dramatically. And when you look at a project like ours, if you look at it at spot prices, that MPV moves up to $2.5 billion. The IRR goes up to 45%, and the actual cash costs go negative to 28 cents per pound. The next slide just shows the three products that we will be producing. Make no mistake, this is a copper mine primarily. Those percentages of revenue are based on the base case. So in the spot price scenario, there's a greater percentage of copper production vis-a-vis the other metals. The other percentages that increase notably are gold and silver, because on a precious metals basis, we're looking at about 80,000 ounces a year of production. So we have lots of flexibility. We will be producing three cons: a copper con, zinc con, and a precious metals con, which is really a lead con by weight, but with gold and silver included in there. So lots of flexibility and lots of diversification within the ore body. Next slide, please. In terms of the permitting process, that's expected to start later this year. We see permitting taking roughly 2 to 3 years, which puts us in a position to make an investment decision in the beginning, end of 23, early 24. And we see engineering and construction taking roughly 3 years. The bulk of the permits required are state permits. There's one federal permit called a 404 wetlands permit. I think we've had a good discussion about ESG, and both Tim and Sam have mentioned ESG in the context of new developments and mining projects. And this is where having NANA as a partner, the Native Corporation, is very, very important. So NANA has 14,000 shareholders in the state of Alaska. They have a good political clout within the state, but also federally. And having them have a seat at the table and also have an economic stake in the development of any mines within the district is going to be key to our success in terms of moving forward. And I would also point out that when we talk about the development of a road, we're talking about a private industrial use road only. It won't be used for any other commercial purposes. And it's really important for the Native communities to maintain subsistent hunting and fishing. And those are going to be key considerations as this project moves forward. And we see the road having roughly a 50-year operational life. So when we look at operations in the district, initially for Arctic being 12 years, we see lots of scope for extending mine life, which I'll speak to next. Next slide, please. In terms of exploration potential, we like to think of this as pearls on a string, and there's a number of targets that are already there. As I mentioned, Arctic has about 43.4 million tons in mineral inventory as it stands today. Bornite is a separate deposit. It's roughly 180 million tons of copper at 1.6%, so certainly not at the same quality of Arctic, but still relative to other copper deposits, a very significant high grade. And then we see a lot of exploration potential in the district in terms of some of these other satellite deposits and resources that are there. So we're going to be having a very significant drill campaign this summer. It's already started, and the idea is to start to convert some of those other resources into Arctic inventory that will allow us to extend mine life. Next slide, please. In terms of bornite, Bornite was actually the primary reason why South 32 came into Trilogy in the Ambler mining district. So the $30 million that was invested in 2017 through 19 was all spent at Bornite. And it's only when we showed these significant economics at Arctic that the focus shifted to Arctic. So the way we're valued right now is people are really looking at Arctic, but they're not necessarily looking at Bornite. Next slide, please. And just in terms of VMS deposits, these are other deposits in the world. I encourage you to have a look at the slide, which gives you a sense of a long life nature of these deposits. Next slide. This is the drill program plan for the current year, 40 drill holes in Arctic, then 5 drill holes in and around Arctic. And the next slide just shows some of the other targets within the district. So as I said, there's 14,600 meters. The last time we drilled was 2019. There wasn't a drill program last year as a result of COVID. So we're very excited to get back up there, and we expect some very good results. Next slide. This is just exploration potential in the district. One of the things that we're very focused on is the connection between Arctic and Bornite. They're the same age, but different types of deposits. So we see lots of opportunities to really look at exploration potential in the district. Next slide. And just from an upcoming catalyst perspective, I would say the key focuses for us are really going to be the Arctic feasibility study and the optimization of that, which is ongoing. 14,600 meter drill campaign, which I indicated earlier. We expect the results in the fall, and then the permitting of the Arctic project. So things are moving along quite nicely. We think we've got a great story here. And in terms of the metals that we're focused on, copper, zinc, gold, silver, lead, and cobalt resources within the Bornite project as well. We think it's well suited to a lot of the themes that Sam was highlighting earlier. And maybe with that, I'll make it, as I said, a quick presentation. I encourage you to come to our website, trilogymetals.com, ticker symbol TMQ on the New York and Toronto Stock Exchange. And with that, Tim, happy to spend the remaining time answering any questions.
Thanks, Tony. Now, for investors who are new to the market, South 32 was spun out of BHP 5 or 6 years ago. Can you talk a little bit more about that relationship and how it works in practical sense?
Yeah, South 32 has been a great partner, and they're really shifting their portfolio. The comment about coal is a very pertinent one. They just sold their coal assets in South Africa, and so they're really looking to redeploy within the green metals and base metals specifically, and that's what they highlighted in the recent strategy update in May. And so we have a 50-50 JV. We have a JV participation. There's a management team based in Alaska, which is separate from Trilogy, separate from South 32. So we basically provide oversight at the JV level and technical committee level. And we get the benefits of really having a tier 1 partner in the project who has operating mines and personnel and can bring experts to bear in terms of any of the challenges and issues that we're looking at. South 32's biggest foray into North America was the Arizona mining acquisition for Hermosa, which is a zinc project. They paid $1.3 billion for that project. The president of Arizona Mining, Jim Gowan's former president of Barrick, is on our board. And so Jim's there not because of that South 32 relationship. That's a big plus, but Jim's there because he was a driving force behind the build out of Red Dog in Alaska. So very excited to be working with South 32.
And just quickly, Tony, we cut you short on the exploration upside. Do you want to just give us a little bit more color on that potential?
So, I mean, we've got a great deposit in Arctic. Arctic on its own is a company maker, certainly in the current spot price environment. And Arctic has a lot of upside. I didn't get to speak to VMS deposits, but the good thing about VMS deposits is that they're sort of like the Aberretti mining. They continue forever and ever, and they keep going and going and going. So there's lots of exploration upside in and around Arctic. And then, as I mentioned, Bornite isn't really getting anybody any attention. We brought in a subject matter expert, a fellow called Dr. David Broughton. He was involved with Ivanhoe's discovery of Kamoa-Kakula, and the mineralization of Bornite is very similar to what exists in the DRC at Kamoa-Kakula, Kapushi. And David and I work together at Ivanhoe, so we're fortunate to have him. And we're really looking at how we could connect bornite to Arctic within the district. So there's lots of exploration potential. South 32 has actually staked an area outside of the JV, and they're conducting their own exploration, which I think underscores what they see as a potential, not just in and around Ambler, but in the greater, broader district as a whole. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and we're really pushing forward in terms of advancing not just Arctic, but exploration in the district.